Hi, everyone. Happy spring. First off, welcome to our March Community Connections. We have a really exciting session for you today in celebration of a few things. So happy Nutrition Month to start off. So huge shout out to all the amazing registered dietitians out there, all the amazing work that you do. In particular, Catherine Smith and Daniela Fellini, two of our own registered dietitians of the Cancer Rehabilitation and Survivorship Program at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center. So a big thanks to you both. Also, it is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And in celebration, we have a fantastic presentation for you today from the team from Colorectal Cancer Resource and Action Network, otherwise known as CCRAN. And they're going to be doing a special segment focused on ostomies. So learn about what an ostomy is, discover helpful tips on eating well with a stoma from a registered dietitian, and hear about CCRAN's My Ostomy Coach program, designed to offer peer support and education. So if you or a loved one are living with an ostomy, then this session would be fantastic for you. Again, we will be posting a recording of the presentations from today. Afterwards, if you're not catching it live, then you can absolutely share a recording of the presentation after the session. And just again, thank you to CCRAN. The expert presenters for their presentation include Cassandra Macaulay, who's the Senior Manager of Programs and Education at CCRAN, Felicia Newell, who's the National Registered Dietitian at CCRAN, and Robin McGee, who's a colorectal cancer patient and CCRAN's My Ostomy Coach. So a fantastic expert panel from CCRAN today. And so that will start as soon as I stop talking. But after their presentation, there will be a small break, and then at 12 p.m. Eastern time, you'll join us in our kitchen. Daniela Fellini and myself, we have a fantastic cooking and nutrition demonstration focused again on colorectal cancer awareness, with specific attention to ostomies and some of the restrictions and how you can cook and eat with some of those restrictions. So definitely stay tuned for that. And then again, just, plugging our website and YouTube channel, any of the recordings from today's session, plus all the recordings that we've done for over 13 years are on our YouTube channel. So you can check those out. If you subscribe to the channel, then and click the notification bell, it'll let you know anytime we do have new classes upcoming and new content on our page. And then just quickly, we are running a special contest, an amazing contest this month in celebration of Nutrition Month. So check out our Instagram page. Details are there on one of our latest posts. But essentially, follow us, post a photo of any amazing dish that you have created, either from a recipe from our website in the recipe library, or one of your own amazing creations, and tag us in it, tag our handle in it at ELLICSR Kitchen in your Instagram post. Include the hashtag Nutrition Month. March is Nutrition Month. And at the end of the month, so this contest will run into March, the end of March, so March 31st, we will randomly select one participant from the contest, and they will win an amazing prize. It is a $75 gift certificate for the Chef's House restaurant in Toronto. Let me tell you quickly about the Chef's House. It is amazing. If you've never been, it is a student-run, the only student-run restaurant in the city of Toronto, from some of the amazing students at George Brown College. So this is connected to George Brown College. The restaurant itself is on King Street, and it is completely student-run from some of their amazing culinary students. They do some amazing work. I've dined there a few times. I know Daniela has as well. They're fantastic, really great. So that is our prize, $75 gift certificate. Dine at the Chef's House in Toronto. So again, check out the contest details on our Instagram page. Hopefully you participate, maybe you'll win. Yeah, again, that's what we're running for Nutrition Month. Happy Nutrition Month. Again, a huge shout out to CCRAN. Thank you for all the work that you do. And enjoy the session. Bye-bye.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Cassandra Macaulay, and I am presenting today on behalf of the Colorectal Cancer Resource and Action Network, more affectionately known as CCRAN. Today, we will take the opportunity to introduce our organization, and then we will learn about ostomies. Before we begin, I would like to thank Jeremy and the team at ELLICSR Kitchen for having us on the program today. We will begin with an introduction to CCRAN, colorectal cancer, and ostomies. Then I will be joined by my colleague, Felicia Newell, who is CCRAN's National Registered Dietitian, and will speak about eating well with an ostomy. Before we conclude, we will hear from CCRAN's ostomy coach, an advanced colorectal cancer patient, Robin McGee, who will share a little bit about her own lived experience and how she supports others. I'll begin by introducing CCRAN, the Colorectal Cancer Resource and Action Network. So, who are we? Well, CCRAN originated as a grassroots colorectal cancer information and support group in 2006, shortly after our president and founder's father succumbed to the disease. Today, CCRAN has proudly grown into a national, not-for-profit, patient-focused organization comprised of volunteers, members, and management. We are led by an experienced board of directors, and we are counseled by a superb medical and scientific advisory board consisting of top experts in the field who keep us abreast of the latest advancements in the management of the disease. At CCRAN, we have not one, but two patient advisory councils whose past experiences with the disease actually inform our program development to ensure that our programming is really relevant and meaningful for those that we support. This is our mission statement. CCRAN is a national, patient-focused advocacy group who champions the health and the well-being of Canadians touched by colorectal cancer and others at risk of developing the disease. We provide support, education, and advocacy to patients and their caregivers to help improve both quality of life as well as longevity. CCRAN has recently expanded our patient-focused mandate, and we're doing this to serve multiple tumor type patients in our HTA patient evidence submissions, which is related to the drug funding process. We're doing this also in our educational events and our advocacy initiatives to ultimately reduce the burden of cancer in Canada. So what is colorectal cancer? Well, colorectal cancer is a pathology that originates in the colon or in the rectum and is collectively known as colorectal cancer. The malignancy begins most often as a benign growth or a polyp in the inner lining of the colon or in the rectum, as you can see right here on the screen. And what happens over time is that some, but not all polyps will actually turn into cancer. Because these polyps can be removed before they become malignant, colorectal cancer is actually considered a preventable cancer. When it is undetected, however, the tumor will actually penetrate the layers of the colorectum. It will spread into the lymph nodes and eventually to distant organs, such as the liver or the lungs. Colorectal cancer is the second leading cause of cancer death. The disease is often diagnosed at a later stage, and it kills approximately 25 Canadians each day. Across all stages of the disease, about 2/3 of those diagnosed will survive 5 years. It is the third most commonly diagnosed cancer, both in men and in women, with about 66 Canadians diagnosed each and every day, and this amounts to 24,100 each year. That's roughly the number of people at a sold-out Leafs game, plus about 100 full coach buses. Overall, incidence is decreasing, thanks largely to screening programs. However, rates are rising rapidly in the population under 50 years old, and these average risk individuals remain ineligible for screening. Next, we'll talk about what an ostomy is. So let's first take a moment to review the digestive system. So the digestive tract is a hollow tube which stretches from the mouth to the anus and is lined with mucous membrane. As food travels through the system, enzymes are added, which then break down the food into a form that can be easily absorbed and used by our bodies. It is important to remember that digestion and absorption of nutrients takes place primarily in the small bowel, which is the area just here. Therefore, if there's a need to remove the large bowel, just this section over here in green, or the rectum, because of disease, the normal digestive process is actually minimally impacted. The main function of the colon, the part in green there, is to extract fluid and salt from the stool and act as essentially a storage organ. Now, ostomies are created to overcome problems with the bowel, which can be caused by injury, can be caused by congenital defect, or can be caused by disease, such as colorectal cancer. Ostomies can be used for the bladder as well, but today's talk is focused on the GI system specifically. So all ostomies allow for the discharge of normal waste through a surgically created opening, which is called a stoma, in the abdomen. Most ostomates wear a pouch to cover the stoma and to collect the body waste, but a few do have good control over discharge of waste and do not need to wear an appliance. I will take the opportunity here to just highlight again that when we are speaking about colorectal cancer, we're talking about a cancer originated within the colon, also known as the large intestine, or within the rectum. Small bowel cancer and anal cancer are separate pathologies, which are less common than colorectal cancer, and they're treated differently. And what is a stoma? Well, the word stoma actually means mouth or opening, and it is the small piece of bowel which has been brought through the abdomen to the surface of the skin during surgery. During surgery as well, what happens is to form the actual stoma, the surgeon will fold back a piece of the bowel on top of the surface of an abdomen, kind of like you would a cuff on a turtleneck. So we'll just take a moment to discuss the difference between a colostomy versus an ileostomy. So starting with a colostomy, which is on the left-hand side of the screen here, this is the junction between the colon and the abdomen. The closer the stoma is actually located to the anus, the more formed the stool will be. So a stoma in the ascending colon, which is over here, will have a mushy consistency of stool, whereas a stoma over here in the descending colon will have a more formed stool. An ileostomy is the junction between the small bowel, which at this point in time is called the ileum, and the abdomen. So we see this over here. In this instance, the large intestine or the colon and the rectum are diverted from entirely. Now, because this ileostomy is located right at the end of the small bowel, the discharge will vary from being quite liquid at first when the ileostomy is first used to semi-solid over time as it goes on and your body adjusts to having it. With an ileostomy, special care must be given to protecting the skin because some of the digestive enzymes can be irritating to the surface of the skin. It's also important for the individual with an ileostomy to take meals at regular hours and to drink lots of fluids to keep the electrolytes in balance. So remember here, we're losing this function of the large bowel, which involves absorbing fluids and salts. Diet as well will have a bearing on both the quantity and the character of an output through an ileostomy. We'll just take a moment to discuss the common types of surgery that are used in colorectal cancer and what type of ostomy they often result in. I will take a moment to acknowledge that each patient is unique, and this is just representative of what we commonly see, but this may vary from individual to individual. So the first type of surgery we'll talk about is an abdominal perineal resection, which is a surgical procedure that removes both the rectum and the anus, and it creates an end colostomy. This is usually a permanent procedure. A low anterior resection removes part of the rectum. The remaining part of the rectum will be reconnected to the colon. In some cases, this will result in a temporary loop ileostomy that can later be reversed, or the anastomosis may be used right away, resulting in regular bowel function right after the surgery. A total colectomy is an operation to remove all of the colon. This may be done, for example, if there are multiple polyps throughout the colon. Sometimes a procedure called a Hartmann's procedure is used to keep a viable rectal stump, in which case the anastomosis can be used, resulting in no ostomy, but oftentimes this does result in a permanent end ileostomy. If you're facing an ostomy, it's important to know that people live very well and very full lives with their stomas. There's certainly a learning curve and an adjustment period, which includes finding the appliances that are right for you. Using the services of a specialist, such as an NSWAC nurse, can be very helpful during this time, in addition to dietary adjustments, as we'll speak about later, and patient support and information. You can continue to participate in your regular life with an ostomy. You can do things like exercising, socializing, have intimacy, swimming, even scuba diving. Next, we will learn about eating well with an ostomy. For this segment, I am joined by Felicia Newell, who is CRAN's National Registered Dietitian. Felicia has a bachelor and a master's of science in applied human nutrition and has worked in areas such as research, education, healthcare, and private practice for 14 years. She has an immense passion for providing help and guidance to all patients, but especially those fighting colorectal cancer. Through CRAN's My Foods for Life program, Felicia assesses patients for their nutritional needs and provides evidence-informed nutrition recommendations and support to help optimize their body's ability to fight cancer and to tolerate the treatments. Welcome, Felicia.
Hello, and thank you for the introduction, Cassandra. So in this section of the presentation, we will focus again on nutrition and eating well with an ostomy. So just go to the next slide. And here's just a bit of an outline of what we'll be discussing today. A little bit about why nutrition is important and ostomy nutrition basics. Then we will get into the first 4 to 6 weeks post-op, management of various symptoms that might present, and then nutrition after recovery and beyond. So why is nutrition important? Having an ostomy does not mean that patients have to give up the enjoyment of eating. And often by the time people experience surgery or have surgery, they are malnourished from years of living with an active disease. And as a result, it is common to have developed fears or confusion around healthy eating. However, many find that after surgery, they are actually eating and enjoying food more than they have in a long time. As we know, eating and good nutrition play an important part in recovery and from any surgery, as well as in our overall general health and state of well-being. So this part of the presentation will go over some of the basic guidelines, but people are, of course, very unique and have specific needs in general, and especially following surgery or with certain types of conditions. So that's why it's an important part of your recovery, and having an ostomy is learning as much about your specific nutrition needs in consultation with your registered dietitian or physician. Some other areas nutrition can help with, helps your body and brain get the energy you need for cognitive function, movement, and just generally feeling well, helps your body get the essential vitamins and minerals that you need for health and metabolism, can help you manage various symptoms that can present with an ostomy, which again, we'll talk about later, can help you reach and maintain a healthy weight, prevent, treat, and lower your risk of chronic diseases and their potential negative outcomes, can help your body maintain a healthy gut microbiome, which affects many aspects of your health, including aiding in digestion and your immune system. What you eat and drink can be influenced by where you live, the types of foods available in your community, your budget, your culture and background, as well as your personal food preferences. Therefore, it's important to note that a nutritious diet might look different for each individual, and that's okay. So just some basics. The part of the digestive system, also referred to as the digestive tract, that might be affected by ostomy surgery are the small intestine, colon, rectum, or anus, depending on the type of ostomy that you have. The digestive tract processes food and fluids so that nutrients can be absorbed from the intestines and circulated throughout the body. And any residue of food that is not digested is solidified and eliminated from the body in the form of stool, feces. Fun topic. Also, depending on the type of ostomy surgery, your ability to absorb nutrients, fluids, and electrolytes may be affected, and also will determine the consistency of the stool. Certain changes might be temporary as your body adapts and heals, or they might be more permanent depending on how much of the bowel remains. For example, certain people are at risk of vitamin B12 deficiency, but even without a stoma, you could be at risk of a vitamin B12 deficiency. If this is the case, you can consult with your doctor, who will order a blood test, or also in rare cases, people can develop short bowel syndrome. But again, these types of things would be outside of the norm and would warrant working with your doctor and or dietitian to help manage symptoms. No matter what type of surgery you've had, your post-surgical diet will typically begin with NPO or nothing, and then transition to liquids and then solids. When cleared by a doctor, a diet low in fiber or low in residue, they kind of mean the same thing, is typically recommended, with also a focus on low spice and low fat foods, which may cause diarrhea or reflux. As your bowels return to normal, you may be able to return to a more regular diet and food choices, unless your surgeon has recommended alternative diet due to medical conditions. The goals of a nutritious diet after surgery are to maintain weight through calories and protein, avoid malnutrition, of course, promote wound healing and healing of the surgical incision by getting enough protein and other nutrients, because those are important for healing as well, maintain healthy fluid levels and prevent dehydration, and prevent a stoma blockage, which we will talk more about on another slide. A low residue, or again, low fiber diet, sometimes they're called low residue, you'll hear, sometimes it's low fiber, but you'll see it recommended a lot after surgery, and particularly in ostomy surgery. The foods that are recommended are easier to digest and produce less gas, which can help with diarrhea, abdominal cramping, and bowel obstruction, and just help with healing in general, give the digestive tract a break. It's usually temporary, should only be followed for 4 to 6 weeks after surgery. And at that time, your doctor will advise you when you're ready to go back to adding more fiber-rich foods and normal foods into your diet. These are the recommended foods to include and avoid for the low residue diet. I won't go into all of them for the interest of time, but I have included my email in the beginning and at the end of the presentation, and as well at the bottom of this slide. So if anyone is interested, I can send a handout version of the presentation or some other resources that I have on ostomy nutrition that will have these lists. But in general, there are lots of foods in each category that you can still include that are easier on the digestive tract when you're healing. For example, vegetables, if they are cooked very tender and soft with no seeds or skins, peeled potatoes, lean meats, fish, eggs, white rice, pasta, and bread. So that's just some examples. Obviously, this is different than what we would normally recommend. We usually recommend higher fiber or increasing fiber, whole grains, nuts, seeds. But again, this is just a short-term diet. It's not meant to be followed long-term for months or years. And again, here's some more examples of foods to include and avoid in the fruits, dairy alternatives, and condiments category. Some additional tips for the post-surgery period. It is common to have a reduced appetite, so give it some time to return. You can try meal replacement drinks if appetite is low, and evidence actually shows that replacing some meals with like protein shakes or meal replacement shakes during the recovery period can just give the digestive tract a break just because it's liquid, but it also has protein and vitamins and minerals and calories. So it's, you're still getting those nutrients, but it's easy on the digestive tract because it doesn't really have to break down a whole lot of things. If you are having digestive issues, try eating small, frequent meals throughout the day versus 2 to 3 larger meals. It's easier for your body to digest smaller amounts, especially if there's inflammation and healing happening. Include lean, protein-rich foods with each meal and snack. That will help keep your blood sugar stable, help keep you full for longer. Chew well and take small bites. Digestion begins in the mouth. We have enzymes in our saliva that start the digestive process. So even just something as simple as chewing your food well, which I know we don't always do, can make it easier to digest. And avoid straws, which can produce gas. So we want to avoid that as much as possible, especially in the first 4 to 6 weeks. One reason for readmission to hospital after surgery is dehydration. And to be fully hydrated, we want roughly 8 to 10 8-ounce glasses of fluid each day on average. Some tips for staying hydrated include including small amounts of fluid frequently. Doesn't need to be water, contrary to popular belief. Our body's still going to extract the water from whatever it is we're drinking. Obviously, water is the best source, but some people love it, some people hate it. So broth counts, even Jello, milk or milk alternatives. If you have diarrhea or vomiting, a doctor or dietitian might recommend an oral rehydration solution to replace some of the electrolytes lost. Try to keep a water bottle with you at all times and set reminders to drink either with your phone or post-it notes or in your calendar. Sometimes we just need those extra reminders. We can habit stack, which is, try drinking a glass of water when you do other habits, such as making meals or making snacks or lunches daily. Drinking water, again, is the best way to hydrate, but foods with water content can also replenish lost fluids. So you can also eat foods with high water content to help count towards your total daily fluid. So stoma blockage is something that some people experience, and post-surgical inflammation of the bowel is normal, but also can make it more difficult for larger particles of food to break down. These particles can get stuck where the intestine comes through the stoma, which then creates a blockage. Someone with a new ileostomy is at greater risk for stoma blockage than someone with a colostomy, but it still can happen. Symptoms include abdominal cramps and pain, abdominal distension, watery stools with bad odor, stool released in spurts, absence of stool output, and pressure at the stoma, but little or no output. And again, by following the low residue diet guidelines that is mentioned previously, this can lower your chance of having a blockage. So in general, try to avoid vegetables and fruits with skins, avoid raw fruits and vegetables, cook them well or use canned, and chew your food well. If you see visible chunks of food in your pouch, it's likely that you're not chewing well enough. So some symptoms that can present for those with an ostomy, gas and odor is one of them. As we know, it is normal, of course, for stool to have an unpleasant odor. Again, fun topic. It comes from bacteria in the colon that help to break down digested food. However, abnormally very foul-smelling stool can indicate an underlying condition. If you feel your stool has an abnormal color, obviously an abnormal odor, obviously contact your doctor. But in general, there are some foods that can either increase odor and gas and some foods that can help prevent these. Again, I won't go through the full list. You can email me if you would like the full list or a sample or a copy of the presentation. But just some examples of potentially odor-causing foods include cabbage, cauliflower, onion. Gas-producing include some of the same foods, but also things like carbonated beverages and chewing gum. And each and every person is different. So some people may be able to consume these foods with no issues, but if you are having symptoms, try eliminating one at a time and see if you have improvement. And then in the middle category here, just some ways overall to improve digestion include consuming probiotics, eating smaller, more frequent meals, and the fruits and vegetables that are on the foods allowed list in that 4 to 6 weeks, and then just increasing fruits and vegetables that you can tolerate after the 4 to 6 weeks. And constipation and diarrhea or high output are other symptoms that people sometimes face. So again, if you'd like this full list of foods that you can include or avoid to help, then you can reach out. But some examples that may cause loose stool include alcohol, apple and prune juice, high sugar foods or beverages, and dairy foods for those with lactose intolerance. Foods that can help thicken stool include applesauce, bananas, boiled rice or noodles, marshmallows, peeled potatoes, and white bread or toast. Foods that may help to relieve constipation include bran, prunes or prune juice, warm beverages or soups, and just in general staying hydrated. Many patients living with an ostomy can eat and tolerate a regular diet, and many are able to gradually return to the diet they enjoyed before surgery. Some might even be able to expand their diet after the ostomy heals from surgery, which is ultimately the goal. However, for others, dietary adjustments might be needed, and you might be prone to blockages and or ongoing dehydration, depending on how much small bowel remains in your body. A good way to help you recognize what foods might be problematic is to keep a food journal and to work with a registered dietitian. The basics of nutrition still apply to most of those with an ostomy. So this includes just your basic general nutrition guidelines. So diet high in fruits and vegetables and fiber, such as whole grains and beans. Roughly 7 to 10 half-cup servings of fruits and veg daily. Women need 25 grams of fiber daily and men need 38. Many do not get enough. So even just slowly increasing the amount of fiber in your diet is helpful, and is so important for gut health and overall health in general. We want to limit consumption of ultra-processed foods that are high in fat, starches, or sugars, ideally keeping these within 10 to 20% of the overall diet, and including 4 to 5 servings of anti-inflammatory fats such as nuts, seeds, and avocado daily. Include lean proteins and plant-based proteins daily, such as lean meat, fish, beans, peas, lentils, nuts, seeds, tofu, and dairy. Limit consumption of red meat to 12 to 18 ounces per week, and limit or avoid processed meats altogether. And again, just limit consumption of added sugar, including sugar-sweetened beverages, but natural sugars from fruits is not included in this category. And limit consumption of alcohol to no more than 2 drinks per week if possible, or at the very least, reduce overall consumption. Above all, we want to maintain a healthy relationship with food. Disordered eating is common and is a major issue that can negatively impact physical and mental health, really more than any one food. Remember that it is the dose that makes the poison with anything in life. Water is essential for life, yet it can be toxic in large amounts and cause hyponatremia in rare cases and death. This is, of course, very difficult to drink that much water, but it can happen. Same with vitamin A. It is natural and essential. It can also be toxic in large doses. So what matters most is your overall diet and lifestyle and what you are doing 80 to 90% of the time. So focus on adding more nutritious foods versus restriction of foods, because restriction of foods can just cause hyperfixation and make us want it more. Remember that sustainable change doesn't happen overnight. So focus on making small changes in your daily life that will help you eat healthier without you feeling overwhelmed. And just a little bit on the microbiome, because it is a hot topic these days. So the microbiome refers to the community of microorganisms that live together in your gut. Is made up of trillions of bacteria, fungi, and other microbes, but they all play an important role in many aspects of your health, including aiding in digestion and benefiting your immune system. Prebiotics and probiotics also have a role in keeping your microbiome in balance, and this is now well established in scientific evidence. And they are both found in foods, and also in dietary supplements. But my motto is get it through food first if you can. But as I'm sure you can see, especially with probiotics, like sometimes people just don't consume a lot of these foods. So that's why they might resort to a probiotic supplement. But the prebiotics are a little bit easier to get in the diet. It's a lot of like fruits, vegetables, whole grains. So your prebiotic foods acts as food for the probiotics, and like apples, asparagus, bananas, onions, flax, whole grains. And then your probiotics is really any like fermented food or pickled foods, things like that. Yogurt, kefir, pickled foods, miso, kimchi, kombucha, sourdough bread. So getting enough of those in the diet is really important to promote a healthy digestive tract and immune system. So again, some people might not get enough in the diet and might want to take a supplement, but it's important to consult your physician before taking concentrated quantities of probiotics, especially if you're on medications or have other conditions. Due to the many factors that can influence your nutrition needs during and after surgery and with an ostomy, it is important to work with a dietitian to perform a nutrition assessment and provide specific nutrition recommendations, interventions, and based on your unique needs. Again, these are all very general guidelines, but certain people need personalized recommendations based on their own lifestyle, history, other conditions, and things like that. Other ways dietitians can help are support with meal planning, assist with recognizing food allergies or sensitivities, tracking your progress through your recovery, managing other conditions such as diabetes, celiac, so many things. Obviously, I'm biased. So, you can always ask your doctor for a referral to a local dietitian or seek out a private practice dietitian online. I know sometimes wait lists for dietitians are long, or some provinces have free dietitian services through calling a line such as 811. We have that service here where I am, and you can access a dietitian for free over the phone. Or if you're a member of CCRAN, you can also access a dietitian, me, for free as well. So those are some options. Again, thank you so much for coming today and for watching this presentation. And if you would like a copy of the presentation or any other resources relating to ostomy nutrition, you can reach out.
Thank you so much, Felicia. CCRAN's My Colorectal Cancer Coach program is a peer-to-peer support and education program. Patients and caregivers are matched to a cancer coach who journeys with them, helping them to navigate the challenges ahead while providing one-on-one support and evidence-based information. Our coaches are wonderful volunteers who complete annual mandatory training and certification across the continuum of colorectal cancer care so that they really gain that content acumen required to very thoughtfully address the inquiries. Each coach is assigned a different portfolio based on their own lived experiences to ensure that their expertise as a team addresses the many needs of the colorectal cancer journey. Within this program, we have our My Ostomy coach, Robin McGee, who supports, informs, and guides patients through their ostomy journey. I'm very pleased to introduce Robin, who is joining us today to share some of her lived experience as an ostomate and speak about her role in the CCRAN Cancer Coach program. Dr. Robin McGee is a registered clinical psychologist who has worked in health and education for over 30 years. Her award-winning book, The Cancer Olympics, describes her fight for medical justice and fair chemotherapy policy. For her advocacy work in cancer care and patient safety, she was awarded the Severance Medal for Volunteers by the Governor-General of Canada. Also, she has been awarded the Canadian Cancer Society's highest honor, the National Medal of Courage. Proceeds of Robin's book go to support cancer programs. CCRAN is very honored and privileged to have Robin as one of our knowledgeable, dedicated, and compassionate cancer coaches. Through CCRAN's My Colorectal Cancer Coach program, Robin supports colorectal cancer patients and caregivers throughout the country. Over to you, Robin.
Hello, my name is Robin McGee. actually, it's Dr. Robin McGee. I'm a psychologist in my previous life, but I'm here today to talk about the CRAN Ostomy Coach program. So I am the ostomy coach person for peers who are attached to CRAN. And so what that means is that what CRAN does is they try to provide a person with lived experience expertise in all of the main categories that people with colorectal cancer frequently experience, like ostomies. I myself have had, I've been reversed. So I had the low anterior resection syndrome for 7 years. Then I had an ileostomy. I've had 2 ileostomies, and now finally a permanent colostomy, which I irrigate, so I don't even need to wear an appliance. So anyway, I have a lot to say about having had those experiences. You know, I can share a lot with people around the kinds of things that you confront as someone with an ostomy, things like skincare, things like sort of the social aspects of it, the intimacy aspects of it, the living outside in the world aspects of it that would be perhaps something that would be slightly outside the experience of your health providers. So, you know, nothing but praise to health providers, but unless they've lived with these conditions, it's often difficult for them to truly understand what it is that people people struggle with on a day-to-day basis. So I'm here to say the way CRAN works is that if you're interested in an ostomy coach or any of the coaches, contacting CRAN will put you on a path to be contacted, and you should be in contact with somebody within just a few days. So because we try to really get to you quickly if you've made such a request. So I encourage people to give that a go. When I was going through all of my issues, it made such a world of difference to be able to talk to a peer who'd been down the road and could say things about how to cope with it emotionally, how to cope with it physically, how to cope with it socially, and in other contexts. And it was I can say now that I probably have the most comfort and the most ease with life and the minimization of discomfort with a permanent colostomy than I had with any of my other conditions. But that too can be unique because there's other things like hernia risk and so on that are part of it, and that can make there's challenges to being an ostomate too. So I just want to really encourage you to reach out to CRAN, and I'd be more than happy to help and guide and talk in any way about any issue you want, even like night or day. So I've had people call me in the middle of the night saying, you know, my appliance broken, it's all over the bed. What do I do? And just walking people through things like that. So you know, there's lots of ways to help people, and we're here to help you. Thank you.
Robin, thank you so very much for your time today. We really appreciate you being here and sharing a little bit about your own experience with us. For anybody who is interested in connecting with Robin and being supported through that program, we would be more than pleased to connect you. In conclusion, I'd just like to thank everybody for taking the time to view the presentation today and reinforce the idea that individuals can and do live well with their ostomies. Support from specialist healthcare providers such as NSWAC nurses, as well as CRAN's patient-focused programs, can help to improve the journey, as well as adjustments in the diet and nutrition to help optimize the experience. And with that, we will turn it over to Jeremy in the kitchen. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Community Connections from our ELLICSR Kitchen team of the Cancer Rehabilitation Survivorship Program at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center. Hello again. My name is Jeremy Capone. I'm the wellness chef, joined as always by the amazing registered dietitian Daniela Ferrini. Hello.
Hi.
Daniela.
Hi.
And
Happy Nutrition Month.
Happy Nutrition Month, exactly, yes. And just a quick thank you again, if you did tune in a little bit earlier, a wonderful presentation from the Colorectal Cancer Resource and Action Network team. If you didn't catch it, then we'll provide all the links below, and you can watch all the recordings afterwards. We have a wonderful session for you today for Nutrition Month, for Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And to start things off, I will throw it over to you, Daniela. Thank you.
Hi. So yes, it's also Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, and we're really happy to have had this wonderful presentation from CCRAN all about ostomies. And so we thought that our cooking and nutrition demonstration should align. So we are going to focus on foods that you can incorporate into the diet, or foods you need to avoid during the first few weeks after the ostomy placement, which may be the most difficult time because your body needs to adjust to a shortening of the intestine if that's happened. Where the ostomy has been placed, is it in the small intestine, the large intestine? And we also need some good nutrition for healing and recovery. Some of the restrictions may occur just during the first few weeks, so don't worry. Eventually, you may be able to return to a regular diet. But our recipes today are going to focus on maintaining hydration, especially if ostomy output is high in the beginning. Normal output for an ileostomy is about 500 to a liter. For a colostomy, it's 200 to 600 ml per day. So if you're above that, you may need to have increased hydration, more than the 6 to 8 cups per day. We'll look at limiting the amount of fiber in the diet. Also, this is temporary, as mentioned earlier. This is until the stoma has stabilized. Initially, the opening may be smaller, there may be swelling. So it may be more risky when it comes to blockage. So having lower fiber or different types of fiber is key. And then for some people who have developed a lactose intolerance or who have a lactose intolerance, we'll use foods that are dairy-free or are lactose-free. And then avoiding carbonated beverages. Well, we're not having any today, but I just thought it was important to bring that up because sometimes there's a lot of gas or wind when you have an ostomy, and avoiding carbonated beverages, not drinking fluids through a straw, it is something that is helpful. And of course, we are going to include protein, calories where it's needed, because we need that for healing. I ran through that pretty quickly, but there is a full list of recommendations. If you go to the great presentation by CCRAN today, their dietitian, Felicia Newell, included a great, wonderful, informative session on nutrition during, like right after having an ostomy, and then in the future and getting back to a good diet. There are other resources also. And that's the UHN, University Health Network's Eating After an Ileostomy. And then there's the Nourish Online's Coping with Changes to the Digestive Tract. And Jeremy, remind me, where will they be able to get those?
Yes. Thanks, Neil. Yes. So those links, we'll provide links to those. If you're tuning in through YouTube, check the description section. And we'll provide links to all those resources that Daniela mentioned, or if you're joining us through our website, ELLICSRkitchen.ca, on the full recipe page in the nutrition notes at the bottom, we'll provide links to those resources and the presentation from CCRAN as well.
Great. Okay, that's enough of me talking. We need to get to what we are here for. And as per usual, Jeremy has created 3 wonderful recipes for us. And they are an apple cinnamon silken tofu ice cream, a Manhattan style clam chowder, and a creamy risotto with roasted squash. They sound amazing. But just one more disclaimer before we go into the kitchen. Sorry, I forgot to mention this earlier. If any of the information we provide today differs with what your healthcare team and your dietitian have said, please check with them first before adding that food. These guidelines, what we're incorporating today, are general, and it's not tailored to your specific situation. And we all know that we are unique beings with our own ways of digesting and absorbing nutrients. Also, foods allowed and not allowed sometimes differ between one low fiber diet and another. So keep that in mind as well. If something we're adding is not in line with what you have, then we can, you can make a substitution. Look at the list of ingredients you've been directed to use and include that instead. Okay, that's really enough of me. I promise it's done now. We're into the kitchen for that first recipe.
We love hearing from you. Don't apologize. All right, so to start off, like Danielle mentioned, we'll be making, this is an ice cream. We're starting off with the desserts. We're switching things up a little bit. So I think super exciting. And this is a dessert that we're making with our food processor. If you don't have a food processor, you can do this with a blender if it has like a wider base. With the funneled blender, the surface area might be a little too small, so you might just have to break it up in different stages. But this is something a little bit different, which it's, I guess another look at hydration, right? I guess we don't always think about ice cream, right? But
yeah, no, true. This is a great rehydrating recipe. That's what I would refer to it as. Yes.
Love it. So we're going to start off with silken tofu. Now, silken tofu, this is a dairy-free ice cream. So I love the addition of silken tofu to provide that creaminess, to provide some of that moisture, because the water content in it is a little bit higher than regular tofu. But it is also, I guess, Danielle, a good protein option as well, right?
Excellent protein. So dairy-free, excellent protein, excellent plant-based protein. And I know like some people are concerned about the phytoestrogens. Phyto, the PHYTO refers to plant. So estrogens in plant form, but they do not act the same way as the hormone estrogen. So please don't be worried about using tofu. It's not going to increase your risk of cancer. Okay. The other thing about it, oh, are you blending? Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I can't tell that it's blending. Okay. What I forgot to say earlier is that this recipe is rich in protein from the silken tofu, but it's also rich in sodium and potassium. It may sound weird that I'm saying rich in sodium, rich in salt. Usually we avoid that. But if your output from your ostomy is high, these are also known as electrolytes that you may be losing, and sometimes you need to replenish it. Along with the fluid. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Danielle. Okay, so silken tofu was the first ingredient, and while Danielle was talking, just went ahead and blitzed that up. So to break it down, and you get this like really nice sort of almost like yogurt consistency, but this is going to just make everything a lot easier to blend and give you this more even mixture versus like chunks of tofu and your other ingredients. So breaking it down first, that's the first pulse. The next pulse will be our apples, and for this, we're making it really, really easy. I know Danielle will probably talk about, removing the skins of fruit. Like if you wanted to do your own apples, removing the skins, removing the seeds. Applesauce is pretty much already broken down for you. All those skins and the seeds are already removed, so it makes the process so much easier. And that is what I'm doing, getting this unsweetened applesauce, about a cup. And we're going to add this in. Now, The key to make it more of an ice cream consistency is to, outside of the silken tofu, to use products that will be almost frozen. So what you can do is even like, if you have like a jar of applesauce, it's a good way to even just extend the shelf life. Put it into like either muffin tins or ice cube trays, and you can freeze it into cubes, so you have this like frozen applesauce that you can incorporate into like baked goods and muffins if you're cooking, or for smoothies, which is great, and also for desserts or dishes like this, where you have this like frozen cube, which I prefer especially if I'm making a smoothie, I don't want to add ice to dilute it. I would rather add just frozen fruit. So that's a great way to especially if you have a jar of applesauce, you don't want it to go to waste, sort of extend the shelf life. So I'm adding the applesauce, excuse me, chuck me a little saliva. The applesauce and frozen, also some banana as well, about 1 medium banana frozen. This is also going to help us to get that really nice sort of creamy consistency. So put all that in there. And then the last thing would be the flavor. So I'm going to start off with some spices. This is cinnamon, and I have a little bit of nutmeg here. Now, Danielle, you can maybe confirm as well. I know that some of the restrictions, spicy.
Yeah, it's spicy. The heat. Yeah.
Heat would be on the sort of a limit list or avoid list. So we're talking about spices here. It's not the hot spices. These are other spices, so like the ground cinnamon and the nutmeg, which we'll be adding. And again, this is optional. You can add whatever flavors you like here. But I think with apple, cinnamon, nutmeg definitely goes together.
Definite excellent combo.
I didn't have it in my recipe, but a little bit of vanilla I'm going to add as well, because I had it in the pantry. I'm like, you know what? Let's do a little vanilla. This is a vanilla paste or vanilla extract you can use. Give it a little bit more flavor. And then we already have some sweetness from the banana, some sweetness from the apple. So I'll probably adjust this as needed if you want to add a little bit of honey, a little bit of maple syrup, but you don't really need a lot at all. So I'm going to start off with maybe like a teaspoon of maple syrup and then go from there. Because it is cold, we're making an ice cream. The sweetness will get muted quite a bit. So, adjust to your taste. But yeah, that's it. There we go. So we have all our ingredients in here. I'm gonna go ahead and pulse this up, scrape down the sides if I need. But the key here is to avoid adding any extra liquid if you can. It might look like it's not going to turn at all. Just keep scraping down the sides and keep pulsing until you get this like nice thickened, almost like frozen yogurt consistency. Okay, so I'll start blending. Maybe I'll mute myself.
Okay. So back to me. So what I want to talk about now is soluble fiber. So the applesauce and bananas are your go-tos, your usual foods that you find on a low fiber or low residue diet. And what both the applesauce and bananas contain is some soluble fiber. And that is different from the residue which can just go through your system and can get stuck in the stoma. But soluble fiber acts differently. And both applesauce and bananas contain a type of soluble fiber called pectin. And what soluble fiber does is that it acts like a gel. So it dissolves in water and forms this gel. And this gel helps to slow down the movement of food through the digestive tract. And this means that the intestines can absorb more of the nutrients and water during that process. So it's a good thing to have if you're having high output from your ostomy. It's also a good thing to incorporate if you're having excessive diarrhea as well. Okay, I think we timed that well, huh?
Perfect. Yes. So this is what we're looking for. And the one last thing I forgot to mention that we did add was about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So going back to
Yes.
Neil's point about the sodium, I'll just mention quickly from a cooking or culinary perspective, that little bit of salt you might think is odd in a dessert, but it will also help to enhance the flavors and the sweetness in the dish, so that we might not need any of that extra maple syrup at this point, which is good. So that was the one thing that didn't show you, but I added while I was pulsing, and pretty much we get it to this point. So right now it is like probably like a soft serve ice cream, which is amazing. So if you like it on the softer side, more of like a frozen yogurt, soft serve ice cream, this is perfect. If you like it a little bit firmer, what I would do is just put all this into a baking dish or a tray that would fit into your freezer, and then you can freeze until solid. Because this is mostly water, there's not a ton of fat in here, because we don't have like cream, which you would find like an ice cream. It will get a little harder as it sits. So if you kept it in the freezer and you want to, have it a week after, just take it out of the freezer for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then it'll be nice and soft, so you can sort of use your ice cream scoop to scrape that out. But I am going to serve this up right now, so it's nice, almost like a soft serve. And I could smell these spices, so I know that I have enough of the cinnamon and the nutmeg in there. And to make this is an optional thing, but to make it a little bit more special, I'm going to add a little bit of these crushed up. These are biscoffs. It's like a Belgium or a cookie from Belgium that has some of the spices of like cinnamon and nutmeg and some of those things that work well. So you're going to have almost like this apple pie sort of feel to it. And so I'm just going to crush it up using the bottom of a bowl. Use a proper tool. This is what I have here. And that, we have this crushed up little crumb on top to finish off. Again, really quick, to make ice cream in like what, less than 10 minutes. Super delicious, super tasty, super hydrating as well. Yeah, really nice way to start off the class with our dessert. How about that?
Yeah. And you forgot super nutritious.
Super nutritious, of course. Yes.
Excellent. I love it. Soft serve is my preference. So I'll be there in 2 seconds. The second recipe is a Manhattan style clam chowder. Soup is another great way to add fluids to your diet. And this clam chowder is also rich in protein for healing, as we talked about before, and several important nutrients like vitamin A, vitamin B12, vitamin C, folate, vitamin K, and of course, potassium. The addition of the fresh parsley is also a great idea because it may help to offset any odor from the ostomy if that is an issue you are experiencing. Okay, Jeremy, what you got there?
Thanks, Daniela. Okay, so we're jumping into soup territory here. This is it's one of my favorite seafood-based soups. We're making a clam chowder, but not the clam chowder that you probably typically think of that is rich and creamy. This is the Manhattan style clam chowder. So you may have heard of the red or the white clam chowder. This is the red clam chowder. Very savory, a lot of umami because of the tomato, and it has some nice heartiness too in it because of the potato and some of the carrots. So it's a great soup, very nourishing, and very flavorful. Now, this is, like I mentioned, Manhattan style. We're going to emphasize the style part. We're taking inspiration from the classic. We're switching some things up a bit too, just in line with some of the guidelines and some of the challenges or barriers that you may experience. So you can switch it up even more, but we're going to start off with the carrots. So that will be our aromatic. We're not adding onions to this or garlic mince in its traditional sense. I'll show you which we can still get the flavor though. So in our pot, medium heat, I've added a little bit of olive oil. I'm going to start off with adding some just roughly diced carrots in here. And I just want to sweat those a little bit, get some of the flavors going. Now, traditionally, you would have either like a smoked bacon in here for the Manhattan style clam chowder, which would give it obviously some nice smokiness. I want to keep that sort of fat down a little bit here. And so to get that smokiness, I'm going to add one of my favorite spices. This is smoked paprika. Again, not spicy in terms of heat, but it has this really nice smokiness. So that smoky flavor that you would get from adding like the bacon in the traditional soup, we're going to still get that smokiness from this smoke. So I want to add it now too, to really get the flavor going. So about a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons, depending on how smoky you like it. So we'll soften this up a little bit and try to give you the best view possible. There we go. Now, to the aromatics, to some of the other aromatics, garlic, onion, herbs. Some of those can be a little challenging. I think Danielle, you probably speak to it a little bit more.
Yeah. So with the onions and garlic, it can increase gas production. And so if that's a concern for you, Jeremy, I like how you suggested you could add it and remove it. If you're having problems with odor, I think then you may want to eliminate it completely. So maybe, Jeremy, like, are there options for that? Or I'm sure, I mean, it sounds flavorful, so it might be good even without the onion or garlic, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Here's where you can customize. And going back to your point of how to add it and remove it, one of the best ways to do that, I find, is using a sachet. This is, we call this like a sachet or a bouquet garni, or you know, you can even use twine. But essentially what we're doing is using cheesecloth, which you can find at, you probably get in most grocery stores, probably even some like craft stores or bulk stores. And this is just a square of it. Is all I need. Is a great way to add a bunch of those aromatics. If you know, depending on the odor situation, I can add garlic and onion to this or not. I can add herbs, whatever I like in terms of flavor. So it makes it a lot easier to pull out. This is great if you're making soups, if you're making broth, stocks, where I don't want to lose maybe some of the herbs, or I want to control the amount of flavor I'm getting from those aromatics. I can easily remove it afterwards. So what I'm doing is getting a little square of that cheesecloth. You can see it, and then I can add my aromatics inside. So I have a little bit of thyme in here that I'll just gently rub with my fingers to start to activate some of those essential oils in there. A little bit of bay leaf in here. I just crushed the clove of garlic with the side of my knife just to break it open. And again, this is optional, right? You can either add the garlic or not. You can put peppercorns, you can put other spices that you want here. It's completely up to you. And then I'll grab the 2 corners on one side and the 2 corners. Actually, we'll do it with the 2 corners first. 2 corners together, and we'll just cross them, almost like tie it. And then the other 2 corners together, cross them, and tie it like this. And then we can just pull gently, and then do one more tie of the corners so that I have this really nice sort of sachet. Okay. Now this is going to still be able to, you know, we'll be able to impart the flavors that we want, but we can remove those afterwards. And that way we're not consuming or losing a bay leaf, and then you get a mouthful of bay leaf, which is not a fun either. So we're gonna go ahead and add this, and I can go ahead and add it actually right now. My carrots are softening up. I'll go ahead and add my sachet right in there. And to this, we're going to add our potatoes as well. I am using a, oh, where it is, there it is. This is a Yukon Gold potato. Depending on where you are in the world, you might have different varieties. What I suggest is choose a waxy potato. for a couple reasons. So the waxy potatoes are things like the red skin. You can do the red skin potatoes if you want. We're peeling them, but the idea is that the potato itself is not as starchy as like a russet potato. So in soups or stews, your starchier potatoes are going to start to break down quite a bit, whereas your waxy potatoes will hold their shape better, which is what we want here. So the Yukon, somewhere in between. So it is on the waxier side, so it will hold its shape, but it will absorb some of the broth too. So that's the one we're working with. Peeled, diced, and I just held it in some cold water here. This will also help to strip down some of the starch, but it's really just to prevent the discoloration or the oxidation. When you're shooting a cooking class, you have to think about these things. I don't want to shoot like off-colored potatoes, so we're just holding it in a little bit of water, which will drain, and add them in my pot. And just a rough dice on there. I like the big chunk of the potato. Beautiful. And then we can go right away and add our liquid, our broth. So there's a couple things that we're going to add here, again, for flavor. The tomato part, you can use tomato juice or you can use tomato puree. We're going to add about 2 cups of that. We're going to get some really, really nice savoriness, so it's really nice umami from the tomato. And it's going to work well with the broth, and that's more traditional. It's the tomato base.
And just
Yeah.
if I can jump in, Jeremy, it's really interesting that the tomato juice or the tomato puree, we think a lot about the vitamin C. We think a lot about lycopene, which is an antioxidant, and those are great. Actually, vitamin C is an antioxidant too. But the tomato also is a great source of folate, potassium, magnesium, and copper. And it's on the list of foods to try if you have issues with odor from your ostomy. So this recipe is definitely a go-to with the tomato juice or puree and the parsley for managing odor.
Love it. Yes, absolutely. And so that will be the first part. We're gonna add a little bit of water. So about a cup of water, and then this is a clam chowder. So we're using canned clams to make it a lot easier. What's nice is the canned clams come in their own sort of broth, that clam juice, which you can buy separately on its own, just the clam juice. Which you'd be like, why are people buying clam juice? Usually for soups like this or dishes like this, right? So we're gonna add a little bit of that, and that's gonna make it super flavorful as well. One little cheat, one little hack that I will say, and this may be only a Canadian thing. I don't know if Daniela, but clamato. You heard of clamato, right? We see it in our grocery stores. That's essentially a tomato juice. I don't know if it is something that you see elsewhere, but with us, it's tomato juice, but it has another ingredient added to it that maybe I don't know if everyone realizes. It's in the name, clamato. It's clam juice. So there's clam juice already added to the tomato juice. You can even use, again, it tends to be a little higher in sodium, but I guess it depends on what you're looking for, right? That could be helpful.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. If you need the additional sodium, if that's not a concern, that may be an option for you. And yeah, clamato juice. I think that is a Canadian thing.
I think it might be a Canadian thing. So you can use that as well. That has the clam and the tomato already in one. And so you can add a little bit of that for the flavor. But that is pretty much it for this point. We're going to bring this up to a simmer. I will put the lid on top and really just until the potatoes are nice and soft. So this might take like 20 minutes and then I can go ahead and finish it off. So do a little swap here. So we'll not let you wait for this part. So this has been simmering for about 30 minutes. Potatoes are nice and soft. About the last 5 minutes is when I would add the clams. Okay, I don't want to add them too early. If I had them cooking in there the entire time, that might get pretty tough and rubbery, and I don't want that. So the last 5 minutes, you can add your clams to the soup. He's going to remove, if you had that sachet in there, you can remove that. So you can see here again, any of those aromatics were nice and packaged in my little cheesecloth. So I can remove that nice and easily. And then we are ready to plate. And season to taste. Oh, and this is, again, I love the tomato version of this clam chowder. Super hearty, super flavorful as well. And yeah, this is where you can add other of your favorite vegetables or anything, but keeping it more of its classic self. And then, like Daniela mentioned, a little bit of fresh parsley for multiple reasons, but it also gives it some nice color. And there we go. This is our Manhattan style clam chowder.
That looks amazing. You know what? I don't think I ever had Manhattan style clam chowder. I've usually had the other. So, okay, my
Here's a
list
good
of
one.
things to try.
Yes, you gotta go with this one.
So, my gosh, can't believe it. We're already at our third recipe, our last recipe. So this is a creamy risotto with roasted squash. Now, the squash is rich in vitamin A, which is a powerful antioxidant and contains a soluble fiber that helps to normalize bowel function and ostomy output. The cooked white rice is gentle on the digestive system, and the higher quality protein in the eggs helps with healing. We're using egg yolks, I believe, Jeremy, and that is also a source of protein, and it also contains vitamin D. And vitamin D might be a nutrient that you may become deficient in for many reasons, right? Because we live in Canada and we don't get a lot of sun. But it's also one of the nutrients, along with vitamin B12, that is absorbed through the ileum. So there may be a possibility that you have some challenges with having adequate levels of these nutrients. And so this is one way to get it through diet. Definitely important to speak with your team and maybe ask your dietitian, whether they can check the blood work to see whether you actually need additional supplementation. But of course, it's a cooking demo, so we are talking about food. Okay, off to you, Jeremy.
Fantastic, thank you, Daniela. Okay, so we're making this really nice creamy risotto. I don't think we've done this in a while, and I would like to go through some of the basics, because this is a good sort of fuss-free way to make it. I know that this dish, maybe it's got a reputation of being, really sort of time-consuming or fussy, or you have to, be at it stirring all the time. It is a simple dish. It is such a great simple dish that you can create, and you really don't have to fuss about it. I think there's ways in which we can hack through it so that it's a little bit easier to make. And it's really should take like 15 minutes tops, which is nice. So really easy, quick. I'll start off with the rice. We're using a short grain rice. Traditionally, you would use an arborio or a carnaroli rice for this, which you can find in most grocery stores. And there are different ways to make it. This is the way that I find, like, if I'm in a rush, something quick, something fuss-free, this is the way that I'm going to do it. So instead of adding my fat and aromatics first, I'm going to go ahead and add my rice right to this dry pan. Have the pan over medium heat. And we're going to add about a cup of the rice right to the bottom of the pan to toast the grain. So I have nothing in this pan other than the rice. And the toasting, I think, is definitely one important step. I don't have to, I know that everyone swears by you have to add your white wine to deglaze, like, that's fine. You can do it whatever way you want. I find that this is probably the only necessary step, is to toast the grains. We want to get those aromas going. And it's gonna give this really nice nuttiness, really nice flavor to the rice. And what you can do is you'll know it's toasted enough. You can either smell it, or if you just gently touch the rice with the back of your hand, when you start to feel that it's getting warm and hot, then we can go ahead and add our broth. Now, while that's warming up, we're making risotto with roast squash, so I'll touch on that quickly. Now, you can make this either a plain risotto, which is like a risotto bianco, so just a white risotto, plain risotto. There's other ways you can add mushrooms and other ingredients, obviously. So, use what works well for you, use what you like. For this, we're using the squash. And a tip how to prep this to make it a little bit easier is I'll take my squash, squash it, throw it on a pan, whole in the oven, and let the oven do the work for me. So 375 for like even 20 minutes, just until it's nice and soft. And then at this point, I can cut it in half. Let it cool down a little bit, but I'm using this beautiful acorn squash here. We'll use a spoon to scoop out the seeds, so you can see already the prep is much easier. I'm not struggling with it with my knife to cut through its hard exterior. Scoop the seeds out, and then we can cut this into slices or just bigger wedges. Throw it on my pan like this. And that roasting, that initial roast at the beginning is just a great way to soften it up. And it does a lot of the cooking, the par cooking for you. And then if I want to season it, here I have, I'm gonna add a little bit of allspice. You can add some, whatever, nutmeg, add some, some dry herbs. Add a little pinch of salt. And then throw it back in the oven, 400, 425, so like a higher heat, just to finish it off, just to caramelize a little bit, and that might take like 10 minutes. So if I've timed this correctly, by the time my risotto is ready, the base of it is ready, my squash will be done, roasted, really flavorful to add on top. So now I'll go back in the oven to finish. My rice is nice and toasted. I can smell it. It's nice and warm. So then at this point, you can introduce the fat if you'd like. I'll add maybe some little bit of olive oil. I don't need too much. Stir that through. And then here's my little hack. Again, back to the reputation of risotto being super fussy, having to stir and add liquid, and I've done it that way many times. But if I need to make this in a pinch, what I will do is add 3/4 of my broth. So if I'm adding 1 cup of rice, I'll be using about 4 cups of broth. So I'll add 3 cups of the broth all at once, okay? And I'll reserve the last 1/4 cup. So stirring that broth through and putting a lid on top, reducing the heat to low, and let that cook for most of the way through, about 10 to 15 minutes, okay? Leaving the lid on top, again, not fussing with it at all. Quickly on the broth. So this is really where all the flavor of the risotto comes from. Like, I know I'm adding squash, or you can be adding other things to it as well. That's fine. The risotto itself is really all about the broth. Okay, it's going to be as good as your broth is. So you can use a veg broth, you can use a chicken broth, whatever you like. Again, make it easy for you. I'm not saying, make a stock from scratch for 6 hours. Sometimes, having a good bouillon or a good like low sodium, stock, box stock on hand can be super helpful. Or ways in which we can enhance the flavor, especially if we're working with a more restricted diet. There's other ways in which we can still get a lot of flavor into our dishes so that we're not missing out. And I will tend to use ingredients that are usually high in umami, or that savoriness. So if I'm making a quick broth, even if I'm just simmering water, then adding things like dried mushrooms. Dried mushrooms are going to add a ton of flavor, and I can strain them out afterwards, but I have this really, really nice, rich umami flavor to it. Tomato paste is another way to add some big punch of flavor to my broth. This is a little cheat that I use sometimes in all my gravies and sauces and broths too, is Marmite. Marmite, you may have, I mean, I know we've had it, you know, in Canada for a long time. And you might see the Aussie cousin, the Vegemite as well. Very similar, essentially a yeast extract, but it has this insane depth of like umami and richness and flavor. So even like a small spoon, whisking that into your broth, or even something like nutritional yeast is a great way to add some really nice flavor too. So, you know, using some of these items, keeping some of these items in your pantry are great ways to punch up the flavor of your stocks, your broths, your dishes, your stews, whatever it may be, so that you're not missing out on the flavor, okay, even though it is a simpler dish.
I like the idea of the nutritional yeast. I was actually thinking about that as you were showing us your flavor tray.
Yes.
Or your flavor board, because it also contains vitamin B12, and if you're have an ileostomy, that's one of the vitamins that you might need to be careful that you might be low in. So I love that idea. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Okay, so cooking that with the broth, 3/4 of your broth, about 10 to 15 minutes. And then to finish, we have our risotto, our rice done, okay? So this is one that I did right before the class, 15 minutes, and it's super creamy. Spoon, there we go. Super creamy, right? But I want to finish it with a last hit of broth. And to make it even creamier, what I'm going to do is add a couple egg yolks. Again, not traditional. This is something I like to do, especially because it's just rice and broth. We're missing on some of those, right, key nutrients, right, Daniela? Like there's no protein in here or anything like that, especially if I'm not adding any additional. This is
Exactly.
to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So that is helpful. Don't be afraid of the yolk.
Yes, exactly. So what we're going to do here is it's just the yolk. I'm not adding the egg whites, so I've separated them. I can add the egg whites into like breakfast in the morning or something like that. Just want the egg yolks here. The reason is the egg whites will seize the rice. It'll become kind of like scrambly, which I don't want. I just want the creaminess that I'm going to get from the egg yolks. So just a quick whisk, and then I'm going to mount it with the rest of my broth, my warm broth. Okay, this is, you may see this technique. It's a French technique. You'll see it in some dishes. That way I don't end up with scrambled eggs. I'm tempering the egg yolks to so warming it up, bringing it up to temperature so that it doesn't scramble when I add it to my hot pan. And I'll add that last bit of broth with my egg yolks, bringing it back to heat here, stirring it through for like the last minute or so, just until the egg yolks cook through. And because I've tempered them with the broth, I'm not going to get scrambled eggs, but I'm going to get this incredible richness and creaminess in the risotto, which is great, especially because we're making this a dairy-free dish, right, Daniela? I guess a dairy could be a little bit of a
Yeah, it's more the lactose.
Yeah.
So I mean, we could use lactose-free milk, but sometimes people are sensitive to that too, depending on how severe their intolerance is. So it is helpful, especially during the first few weeks. If you have concerns, why not do this instead?
Absolutely. All right, and here's our squash. Beautiful, nice and roasted, some great caramelization. Those spices are just amazing. The skin of these green squash, these types of squash, you don't want to include. Those are very leathery and hard. So I could just remove those pieces, but I have this amazing, just beautiful squash. And again, you know, I guess you can use, you know, whatever works for you right here.
Yes, you're reading my mind. Oops, I just moved my camera. Okay. I was thinking, you know, at the beginning of the presentation, I talked about how there's low fiber diets and low residue diets. There's have differing ingredients, and squash is one of them that is okay on a diet that we have here at UHN, but may not be okay on another low fiber diet. So like I said, go with what your healthcare team says, what your dietitian says. And I was going to ask you, Jeremy, like, this recipe looks like it's really easy to substitute a different type of vegetable, like, you know, maybe not plantain though. Can you do plantain? That might not be it.
I love the experimentation, the creativity there, Danielle. I've never done a plantain risotto, but why not? You could absolutely do.
That sounds weird.
Absolutely.
Mushrooms, yes, that's a common one, right?
Absolutely.
Although I guess if you have challenges with gas and wind, that might not be an option. But yeah, so look at the list that you have, and what about green or yellow beans? No, I've never seen a risotto with that, but again, experimentation, right? Create something new.
Absolutely. And I think, again, doing, like you said, Daniela, do what works for you. At its
Yeah.
base, we call this a risotto bianco, a white risotto. On its own, the richness from the egg yolks, the rice, the broth, those three ingredients are going to make an amazing dish. And it's
Okay.
so
Great.
it's really just what you want. If you want to add anything to accent it, then yeah, use what is on the list of like the more of the choose ingredients, the choose vegetables that work for you. You can experiment, you know, break out of the traditional, you know, definitely a plantain. Hey, plantain risotto, I've never tried it. If that's something you want to give a shot, go for it. The beans would work. You can definitely do the beans as well. The
Yeah.
white, the green beans and yellow beans.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jeremy, like we could ask people watching, you know, if you experiment with this recipe and let us know. Let us know what you introduced to the risotto.
Absolutely.
Maybe you'll be on a new segment of Community Connections.
There you go. So to finish it off, the risotto's done. Again, just that last couple minutes with the egg yolk and that last little bit of stock, just to get it to this, we call it this wavy point. So for me, risotto should be wavy. You move it in your pan, it should have some fluidity to it. Don't want it to be dry or seized. And so I'm going to add a couple ladles here. And like I said, like Daniela, you can just do that, just do the white risotto. I think it'd be fantastic. A little trick is when we put it on the pan, we take the other, we're getting a little fancy here, but if you want to fancy it up, you get your hand and just give it sort of a gentle tap on the bottom of the plate, and that'll spread the risotto out. And if it's wavy and creamy enough, then you should get it to cover almost your entire plate. And it's very, very thin, so it doesn't mound on top. And then if you had some nice vegetables that you did want to add or any other accents, again, we're going for a dairy-free version. If you don't have any dairy or lactose restrictions, and you can add even a little bit of Parmesan cheese on top. So we're going to add just a little bit of that squash, a touch of olive oil, and we have this really, really nice creamy risotto with our roasted squash on top.
That looks really good. That looks really good. Well done, Jeremy. You hit it out of the park again.
Wonderful. And I'll add one little tip too. You know, risotto has, again, this reputation of you have to make it and eat it right away, and leftovers of risotto aren't good. If you're making a dish, I think this is a great way to freeze some of the leftovers, and that way you have even smaller package meals. If you're looking for maybe not a full plate, but you want a smaller version of it, cool it right away with rice, especially cool it right away, and then you can put it into even like muffin tins. I know we've done this with our soups before. something like this, putting ladles of risotto in there and freezing it. And then you have these blocks of rice. And I know it'll be softer, it's not going to be as al dente and all these rules. But if you want to add it to even like a soup, to add like some rice to a soup, or microwave it and add some other, you know, ingredients or vegetables, you can do that as well. And that way it's already done, and you have more portioned servings there.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because, you know, I didn't go through all the recommendations, but some of the recommendations are, you know, not to have 3 large meals, focus more on smaller meals, eat more often, don't skip meals. And then the other one that I was thinking of, I would find difficulty doing, looking at your amazing recipes, is chewing your foods thoroughly. But that is so key, because chewing your food thoroughly will help support digestion. It's also going to reduce the risk of blockage. So chew your foods well, everybody, and I will try to do that too.
Thank you, Daniela. And again, thank you for all that you do. You know, we celebrate, you know, dietitians for Nutrition Month, but it should be all year round. So thank you. Happy Nutrition Month.
Thank you.
And
I was going to say it shouldn't be just dietitians, it should be all nutrition professionals, because thank you for all you do. Yeah,
thanks,
we
Daniela.
are lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Cancer rehab and survivorship.
And again, a big thanks to CCRAN as well for joining us earlier, and for Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And again, we will provide links for their presentation and some of the amazing resources that Daniela mentioned in today's class. Don't forget to join us next month. We have another amazing Community Connections class on the 3rd Thursday of April.
I think it's the 18th.
The 18th. Most likely, if you haven't subscribed, we would love to have you as one of our ELLICSR Kitchen family team. So subscribe and click the notification bell, and it just gives you a heads up anytime we do have any new content or any new classes upcoming. And lastly, in celebration of Nutrition Month, we are featuring an amazing contest for the month of March. So if you haven't checked this out, go to Instagram to our ELLICSR Kitchen page. It's at ELLICSR Kitchen. There are details there, but essentially, if you post a photo of any dish that you make, whether it's from our ELLICSR Kitchen library of recipes or one of your own amazing creations, post it on your Instagram page. You can tag at ELLICSR Kitchen and include the hashtag Nutrition Month, because this is in celebration for Nutrition Month. And at the end of March, so this goes up until March 31st. At the end of March, we will select one winner, randomly select one winner for the prize, the amazing prize of a $75 gift certificate for the Chef's House. The Chef's House is an amazing student-run restaurant in Toronto on King Street, connected with George Brown College. So it's George Brown College Hospitality Culinary students that run the kitchen. The food is fantastic. Daniela, I know we've been together.
I've been there. I've actually been there several times, and I do enjoy it very much. And it's such a vibrant environment as well, because you have students and but the food. Chef's kiss, is it? Chef's kiss? Is that what you do?
Yeah. So you can win a gift certificate, $75 gift certificate for the Chef's House if you participate. Open to anybody, so you can encourage anyone to join. Yeah, thank you again, Daniela. Have a wonderful day. Happy Nutrition Month. Happy spring. We made it.
We made it to spring.
Yes.